Thank you.
Can this be the stage?
This can be the stage.
Would you get a little closer to you? Okay.
Including you. I'm going to be very close to you. So, the theme for the NPA Summit today is people analytics. And our presentation is going to be more about the people part in the people analytics theme. So, and the people analytics, that is to use tools and methods to be able to make better and more precise decisions regarding the workforce. To gather this people data, you often need some sort of digital tool. Mm-hmm. To implement these tools, you need some sort of implementation process. And to make the workforce, or the people, to use the tools in the way that the supplier had in mind and that gives the most bang for the buck, you need human engagement. Now, this is where we see a huge gap. Our thesis is that most implementation processes has lost, not all completely, but almost completely, lost all connection with the human engagement. This is what we spend our time and our engagement on to reduce the gap. So let's have a look at some numbers. Over the last years, we have experienced a huge change in our digital behavior. The rate in which we download, implement, use, and almost inhale smartphones, almighty HR systems, really cool, colorful apps, etc., has escalated at an enormous speed. Even though I don't have a specific number for this rate, I do know, and you, all of you, do know too, that we are still at the beginning of this journey and probably will never get to the end. But yet there is research from McKinsey & Company that states that 70% of all transformations fail. So if we, by all transformations, mean that they also include these implementation processes of digital tools, that means that not more than 30% of these projects succeed. Earlier this year, the G2 State of Software study stated that 25% of employees said the software they're using at their work has made them consider leaving their jobs. So imagine that at any weekly meeting at your workplace, every fourth person in the room actually dislikes the software to the extent that they want to quit.
Should we raise hands? Who is it in this room?
Probably a lot.
Will not.
So, but in the same study, the G2 study, 95% agreed that the right software could make them more productive. And unfortunately, I don't have a number. I've really been looking for this, but I haven't found one. A number for how many digital tools or systems actually are being phased out or dismantled. My guess is that the rate for phasing out is not at all equal to the rate that we implement. But one figure I did find, well, and that's quite terrifying actually, is that unused software costs businesses $40 billion in overspend every year.
Unused? My God.
I know, I know.
So how do we handle this then? We need to ensure optimal usage and maximal maximize the benefits of all these digital tools that are flooding the market. Yeah, and we need to gain return on investment by focusing on the behavioral perspective in these implementing processes, the human perspective. So it's time for human onboarding. That's why we're here. But let's make this clear from the first start. We don't want you to put more time or more money into these processes. We don't think that any of you sitting here in this room thinks, oh, we spend too little time on implementing digital tools. Yeah, no one.
Do you? No.
If there is anyone we want to discuss with you afterwards, it would be interesting. It's rather where you put the focus in the processes. So we must put high emphasis on working with the human engagement and the human commitment in these processes. That's what we're aiming for, and that's what we're going to discuss today. And we dare to say that we think that this is the way to make these processes more efficient. By focusing on engagement and collective commitment, you actually get the world's most efficient vaccination program, actually. Because through engagement, through commitment, people tend to be more have more acceptance and be more tolerant to the system itself, because the system never works 100% from the first time. Or do they? No, we need to build in some kind of vaccine towards all these bugs in the system. Yeah. So this is what we want to talk to you about today. This is us.
Yeah.
This is Anna.
This is me over there. This is Eva over there at Gotland. And this is how we prefer to live when we're not here. But apart from lying on our backs in the sun at Gotland, we love to make change through people. Both of us, we both have a bachelor's degree in behavioral science. And I, Anna, act as a people change manager. And Eva, you design change.
Yeah, that's what we do. So let's talk about how we think we could make these processes more efficient. We would love to discuss this with you afterwards as well. There are some trends, though, that we see, some key elements that we need to address in this design. Please take the first one. You start.
I start.
Yeah.
We have identified 2 key development trends to hopefully get the numbers up, to get better figures for this successful implementation processes. The first one is that for us, or for me, as an old HR person, a long-desired development is finally here. We move away from central responsibility in organizations to individual responsibility. Previously, HR was responsible for all people issues. Everything from wiping tears to decide on salary levels to be responsible for negotiating with unions, all by themselves. Later on, the responsibility moved to the managers. Now, the managers were trained and supported to take full responsibility for everything that had to do with employees, much because HR needed to become more strategic. Now, the focus of responsibility is directed towards the employees, finally. Completely in line with our society's development of moving towards individuality and what's in it for me. Self-leadership, employeeship, you're responsible for your own development, your own learning. You have flexible working hours, mobile working methods, and so on. The second key is that we know that the road to engagement goes through the hands and feet of the employees. In other words, to make people do differently together. And when we talk about people, we do not mean that the manager or the management teams point out where to go and just make the people go in that direction. No, but to be successful in making change, we have to co-create the change. We need to involve every single person, every single employee, manager, colleague, friend, whatever, at your workplace, to include them in the process. Inclusion, that's an important key for success. Yeah.
Another key, of course, none of you in this room is not news for you, that change is constant in English. Change is no longer a project with a start and an ending. It's more of a state of movement where we always take small steps to be in this movement. It's this art of keeping this movement moving, movement going, is what we are aiming for. So we need to address this in the design as well, to work in small steps together, to make collective small steps to get this movement going in the design, rather than have a start and a finish. So that's also it's good to have that in the design as well.
Yeah.
So time to just address this important issue and to be clear about one thing: the fact that humans are not rational. People are not rational. Ulrich, you made this?
Make notes.
You should know this. My husband thinks he's rational. We aren't. We're actually very emotionally driven people. We make decisions on emotional level, and especially in changes. This is a clue. We need to work with these emotions in the change processes much more than we do today. We need to work with the negative emotions, we need to work with the positive emotions. And when it comes to negative emotions, there is this little piece called the amygdala, an almond-shaped little center in the brain that is activated very often in change, because change often arouses some kind of feeling of stress, or you feel insecure, or some kind of resistance is built up. And that is the amygdala getting activated. Sorry. So in the processes, we need to put a design where we don't wake up this little almond-shaped center in the brain, because having that done, you know what's happening. We have to work with change resistance, and that is very hard. We don't want to put our energy into that. So that is important, to work with those kind of feelings. And the positive ones, they are there as well, of course. We need to put a design for them as well, to make them develop and spread as fast as possible in the process. So we would like to encourage you to work and think and design your changes through these very, very simple steps. The first step, obviously, is hear it phase, the hear it step. This is where we hear about the change, where we inform, where we describe what's going to happen, where we tell people. We will have some tips for you around this step in a minute or two. Mm-hmm. I will come back to that. I would like to address the feel it step. This is the step where we need to put more emphasis on. We're not as good as we should be in this step. Actually, I think we work with this, but actually we don't do it as much as we should. So this is where we need to replenish the behavioral science perspective, actually, so that we come down to the internal motivation of change. The internal motivation of change, not the external. And having reached that level, people actually make the decision to go for it. So to be able to just commit yourself to, yes, let's do this, you need to address the internal motivation. You need to work with that in this phase. So we work with self-awareness to get this determination, and this is probably what every implementation consultant is aiming for, to take the decision. Let's do this. And the best way to do this is, of course, to do it collectively, not individually, to make a collective decision, commitment to do this together. And then you can jump up to the do it phase, the do it step. And having done the feel it step properly, we dare to say that this is more or less a walk in the park. Not a walk in the park, but you have definitely succeeded with the hardest part of the process, having people on board. Do you recognize these steps? A little bit? Good. Yes, so we have put them into our own little method.
Own model or method. Yeah. So Doings, which is the company that we're from, we work according to this model. When we design change work, we call it the Make It Happen model. And we work consistently, as we said, with change processes in groups rather than with individuals. Fellowship and participation create both motivation and commitment. So by gathering the power of people in groups, we co-create the change. Now, Eva, you will walk through this model for us.
Shortly. You need lunch. So I would just walk you through these three phases. I know you all recognize it a little bit. It's built upon these three easy steps: hear it, feel it, do it. So the very first thing we do in change processes, actually before any button is pressed in any tool, in any system, we build the foundation for change. And this is the phase that we work the hardest on, actually, where we include the hear it phase, the hear it step and the feel it step, actually. So why, what, want? I think you all know this. I just want to dig a little bit deeper into these words. The why. This is the hear it step, to inform, to tell about the change. And managers are very eager to get going often in these steps, and they always talk about how to do this and what are about to happen. And we want to encourage, we always encourage our customers to communicate around the why. Why are we doing this? What are we aiming for? What are the purposes? What do we want to accomplish? Why do we do this kind of change? And you need to communicate around this often, repeatedly, repeatedly, repeatedly. And this is from an organizational perspective. We also need to work with this on an individual perspective. What's in it for me? To get to the want, to get to the internal motivation, to address the company why and the individual why, and make them connect. Kind of like when you build the culture or working with values. And it's interesting with the brain, again, because the brain tends to dislike change, but to like development. That's interesting. So it's important also how you communicate the why and communicate around this change. So a little tip is actually to don't say the word change. Talk about development. It's interesting how you persuade that. The what. Anna talked about co-creation. In this phase, we try to build a visual, make it visual where we're aiming to, where we're aiming at. What kind of habits and behaviors are we to change? What is going to happen before we start with a new tool? And it's important to include everyone in this work. It's kind of a workshop. And try to handle this little amygdala, not try to change everything, think small and include everyone and try to define what should we start doing, put one foot in the new world, but have the other foot in what you already know. So what should we continue doing? That is important to define. What should we stop doing? And what should we start doing? And to define this and do this in a process where you co-create the what is important. So anyone who hasn't already made the commitment, I want to do this, have some kind of help in this process, definitely. Yeah. And so the want, we already talked a little bit about that, but this is actually where we structurally work with the internal motivation and the individual commitment together again. So co-creation is the word. So nothing has happened actually concerning the tool or the new method or anything. This is just preparations. So this is the foundation for change. So implementation is going on, technical onboarding and so on and so on. Now we have started doing things differently. 3 simple things to have in mind. Also, small is the new big. Remember the movement thinking? Small steps, because when we go into change processes, we start activating the frontal lobe, this part of the brain. You can actually feel it when you're changing a lot. You need to just put some massage up here to just be focused. No, you don't know that? I often do that. Okay.
For real?
So you need to not to get overloaded in this frontal lobe because it's has a high maintenance cost, this part of the brain. You need to put it down to, how should I say this? You need to put it into small pieces, step by step by step by step, not to get this part of the brain overheated, so to say. So remember to make things small and small steps together. And the reward thinking is also important in this phase, because behavior is all about rewards. Small rewards often. So having done the design in small steps, you need to address progress. You need to celebrate often. Celebrate big steps, celebrate small steps. Have that in mind. Reward, 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 reward. And continuous learning. Remember that we encouraged you to co-create the what, stop, start, continue. This is what you need to do continuously in this phase. You need to learn from your doings. What should I stop doing? What should I continue doing? What can I start doing from now on? This kind of agile, continuous learning. Okay, I would just rush through this phase because of the time. So the last step is a make it last step, to have a long-term design for behavioral change. There are many tips in this phase, but feedback is the most important, I think, to highlight the progress, to lift up stories and success stories, and try to give positive feedback to the behaviors that you would like to see, so that it feels meaningful and want to keep the momentum of change. Yeah.
So, takeaways from today. Define the why before the requirements. If you don't know why you're doing this digital change, just don't do it. I wouldn't do it.
It's important.
Yeah.
Companies rush through this why and go to the how and the what. So remember that.
Yeah.
Design for engagement. Oh, I think we made that clear in the little speech. But don't forget this. Please work through the feel it step. Make sure to address the internal motivation and work with the commitment and co-create. That's a part 2 in this phase, because we need the commitment. We need the engagement in these processes more than ever.
Yeah, and about co-create. This is so important. To start working through a new tool is a mutual responsibility. It's a mutual responsibility. No one would be happier than me if it proved to be that easy, that you just push the button and all the systems will talk to each other. But it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. We all need to take responsibility for making this work. Mm-hmm. And the last one, join the movement.
Yes.
We need you. We need you as self-driven employees to together move yourselves and all the rest of us lot forward. And we need you also to continue spreading the word that change is not a project with a start and a finish line. It's a constant movement.
Yes, and we need you to address the engagement and the feelings to make a design for that in the implementation processes. So we hope to have your help in this, and we love Fika and Chats. Yeah. So please add us on LinkedIn, or give us a call. Or follow up with a discussion afterwards. Yeah. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Have a good lunch.
Have a good lunch and day. Thank you.